Adiveret Kids learning session. We at Adiveret Kids work very sincerely and in a very effective manner, not only to provide all the support in improving the skill of the children in pre-primary school or early child years. We also bring lot of tools which are designed in a very scientific way to measure the skills. We at Adiveret Kids believe that if something is not measured, then it cannot be managed. And when we are putting all of our efforts in improving the skill set of the children, then it becomes very important to understand how much of the skill that the child has achieved. Therefore, the measurement, assessment, evaluation should be integral part of any skill building process, may it be the early childhood development or it could be the higher education. In Adiveret Kids curriculum, we follow a 20 skill curriculum, and under social skill development, we follow a 4 skill curriculum while we deal with social and emotional skill of the child. The 4 skills we included in our curriculum under social and emotional skills are social cooperation, then social independence, social interaction, and problem behavior. So whatever skills to be developed in a child in early childhood years should be categorized in these 4 categories. And if you look to our syllabus pattern, then we do include these 4 areas of skill development in a very structured way. Now, we always say when we bring some kind of skills, then we also bring very scientifically designed tool to measure them. So today we'll discuss how we are measuring the improvement in the social cooperation skill in the child. Out of these 4 skills, today we'll deal with one component of the social skill, that is social cooperation skill in the child, and we'll try to understand how we measure them and how do we know that our child is effectively having those skills which are categorized under social cooperation skill. So, just going further, we'll just recall that scientific way of understanding why it is important to build these skills in the early childhood. It's because there is a habitual way of doing things for each and every human being, and those skills are getting strengthened between 2 to 6 years of age. So if you look, mostly the social skills which are behavioral in nature, it picks up in the early years, starting from age 0 itself, when the child is born. And there is some age which is called as sensitive period, which lasts up to 4-5 years and sometimes 6 years. What this sensitive year means is that when child behaves in certain way, and if the child is not corrected or the child is not modified, those habits become a habitual way of behavior. Every behavior can be a habit, can be a pattern of behavior after 6 years of age. Sensitive years are those years which provide us opportunity to modify them, to work on them, and to modify the way we want it. Therefore, the preschool years are very important in terms of social and emotional skill development of the child. So when we talk about sensitive period, how does it work? When child picks up a behavioral pattern, then it peaks in the age group of 3 to 4 years, and after that the effectiveness of that change start reducing. Meaning, if we are not intervening in a particular behavioral pattern of a child, then that behavioral pattern remains very rigid post 6 years of age. That's why 2 to 6 years are called the very, very sensitive age. Sensitive age we must remember as parents and teachers, because this age provides us the opportunity to modify them the way we want it. Therefore, we keep it in mind, so we will not delay those things if we identify some of these things to be modified in our child. So it becomes very easy for all of us to do those things in these 2 to 6 years of age. Now, out of these 4 skills we talked in social and emotional skill, social cooperation skill is one of the very, very important component, because we live in a society and cooperating to another person or another situation is very important. Those children who do it quite well, then they are considered to be social effective, and those who lacks it, then they may not be that social effective in nature. So these 4 skills: social cooperation, social independence, social interaction, and problem behavior, we are only dealing with social cooperation skills today. And social cooperation skills are very, very important. And once the child picks this right social cooperation skills, child becomes very, very effective dealing with various situations, various individuals, either in the preschool years or going further in the latter ages. Now for that, all the parents and teachers, we must do a very, very small activity or that measurement to evaluate how effective is our child as far as the social cooperation skill is concerned. Now for that purpose, you need few things to do it. Number 1, you need to pick up a piece of paper or notebook. You need to have a pen or pencil. And if you are not very comfortable with numbers, adding and multiple additions of numbers, then you may pick up a calculator. And the calculator can be simple calculator, or you can use your mobile phone, or it can be used as a calculator. So you need these 3 things to do it. So if you are ready with this, let's start with a very, very interesting and very, very effective tool to measure the social cooperation skill in our child. Now, what I'm just going to do, I'll be giving you one situation or some skill set. You have to answer them based on the child for which you are measuring them. If you are a parent, you are measuring the skill in your child, then keep the child in your mind. And if you are a teacher, then the child for whom you are measuring the cooperation skill, keep that child in mind and answer these questions. Number 1, the child is cooperative. When we talk about the child is cooperative, meaning if we say something to the child immediately listens to that and does as per our wish. That is called cooperative. For example, if I say that please sit down and don't shout, that means the child understands that, accepts that, and follow that. That becomes a kind of nature of cooperative in nature. So if this skill has to be tested, then if you feel that the child never does it, whenever you say something child doesn't cooperate, then you put a cross mark in 0. So you have 4 options to rank this particular skill. It could be 0, And if you feel that the child is rarely doing it, sometimes the child is doing, sometimes the child is not doing, very, very rarely the child is doing, put a circle in 1, which is rarely. And if you feel the yes, child is doing, but depends on the mood, child is doing sometimes and sometimes child is not doing, put a circle on the sometimes, which carries a score 2. And if you feel that child is always doing it, whenever there are opportunities, child is doing and child is cooperative in nature, put a circle in 3, which is often. So if this is understood, so for each and every skill, there will be 4 options. One is child never does it, child is rarely doing it, child is doing sometimes, and child is doing often. So these 4 options, keep it in mind, and based on that, we should go ahead with our next skill set. The child follows instructions from the adults. Now this means whenever we tell something to a child, immediately the child follows that and performs that. If the child, similarly, we have to give one option out of these 4 options that's available. If child doesn't listen to these instructions, then put a circle on 0. And if the child is rarely doing, then put a circle on 1. If the child is doing sometimes, then put a circle on 2. And if the child is often doing it, put a circle on 3. I hope now it is quite clear what to do, and you have to mark on 1 out of these 4 options. Then moving further, next thing we are going to check, child shows self-control. What does this mean? This means that whenever a situation arises, then child behaves appropriately. Meaning, if there are 3 or 4 children and there is one toy available to play. Now it may happen all 3-4 children, they may be fighting to get this toy for themselves. But if the child is showing that control, okay, others are fighting, the child is simply coming back, saying that let one child get it. That is a sign of self-control. If the child, some other children are served with food or some chocolates is given, one child is not having that chocolate. That share of that child chocolate is not there. In that means, the self-control means the child will never show distress, never show anger in the face. So that is called self-control. If the child is showing self-control most often, almost all the times, put a circle on 3, which is often. And sometimes child is showing this, then put a circle on sometimes. Child is rarely doing it, put a circle on 1. And child never does it, put a circle on this 0 part, which is shows never. So I hope it is very clear. Then go to the next part. Next point is the child usage free time in an acceptable way. The acceptable way is something which is defined by the teachers or by the parents. It may happen when parents say that the free time is, let's say, from 4 to 7 in the evening, and child should not watch television. At that time, child should play with other friends. So this is the way which is defined by the adults in the family, and once it is defined by the adults or the parents, that becomes the acceptable way. That means that is the way the things will be accepted. And if child understands that and behaves accordingly, then we have to give score as per the child's behavior. If child never does that, whatever has been defined to be done in a particular time, then you just put a circle on never. If the child does it rarely, then put a circle on 1. If the child does it sometimes, put a circle on these 2. And if the child always doing it, then put a circle on 3. So we have now completed 4 things. You have got 4 circles, one in each of the skill set. If it is done, then we'll move further. Now moving further, we'll go to the 5th skill. And 5th skill talks, the child sits and listens when stories are being read. Stories may be read by parents, stories may be spoken by a teacher, but when the stories or some narratives are being explained, the child should sit and provide complete attention to that. If child always doing it, every time child is attentive and listens to that, put a tick mark on this 3, which is often. And if the child is doing that sometimes, then you put a tick mark or circle on 2. And if the child is doing it rarely, put a tick mark on 1. And if the child doesn't do it and the child never does it, then put a tick mark on this 0. I hope this is clear. And those are the things based on our observation. And as parents and teachers who spend quite a lot of time with a child, they must be having those experience with the child. Based on that, this the alternatives can be tick mark. Next one, the child cleans up the messes when asked for. It is very common when the child plays, then a lot of things will be going here and there. There will be toys are spread out in the room. There are books, there are pencils, crayons, a lot of things. When the child plays, a lot of things and a lot of messes are expected to be there. But when the parents or the teachers, they say, please clean it out. If the child does it always, the moment somebody says, please clean it up, and the child does all the time, then you put a circle here on the feet, which is often the child is doing it. And if the child does it, but sometimes the child doesn't do it, sometimes the child does it, then we put a circle on 2. And if the child is doing it rarely, we put a circle on 1. If the child doesn't do it at all, then we put a circle in never. Then, after this evaluation, we move to the next skill. Next skill is the child follows rules. At school, at home, we do form various rules. Rule could be sit without making noise. Rule could be don't throw things. Rule could be just ask teachers before doing anything. So rule can be anything, any thing related to the discipline, anything that can be framed by teachers or parents. So whenever a rule is framed, it is expected that the child should follow it. And when we evaluate this particular thing against the behavior of our child, then you can put the appropriate one. If the child doesn't follow the rule, you just put a circle on this 0. If the child follows it, but very, very rarely, you put a circle on 1. If the child does it sometimes, then you put a circle on this 2. And if the child is doing often, all the times, always the child follows rules, then you put a tick mark or circle on this 3. Then we'll move further. The next point is that the child shares toys and other belongings with others. So that is the share, and cooperation, social cooperation happens once we start sharing our own stuff with others. And this is a skill which the child can learn, and that's where the preschool becomes very, very important place to learn those things to the child. Sharing the things is a kind of skill which can be learned. So when the child voluntarily shares the toys and other things with others, then that becomes a good social cooperative cooperation skill. And if the child does this particular behavior all the time, then we put a tick mark or a circle on these 3 here. And if the child is doing sometimes the child shares, sometimes the child doesn't, then we put a circle here in 2. If the child does that very rarely, we put a circle here, and the child doesn't do it and never share the toys and other belongings, we put a circle mark here on 0. Then now we have completed 8. Now we'll move to the last 4 of checkpoints to measure the social cooperation skill in our child. Now the 9th one says the child gives in or compromises with other children when appropriate. That's what is a big skill, meaning we knowingly lose the argument. That's what when we adults feel that, or always say that, we make sure that we do not lose a friend, but we prefer to lose in argument. So exactly this particular skill we are testing in our child in early childhood years is exactly this. This shows when a child, there are situation when it is expected the child will show little bit of maturity, and maybe the child will withdraw to himself or herself to make others away. If such kind of situation happens, then we feel that social cooperation skills are better. Let me give you another example. If there is one toy, 2 children, they are fighting for that toy, and one child will be just compromises and gives in, saying that, okay, you take it, you play, I'll just play once you are completed. You are done with your play, I'll just take it. That is an example of giving in or compromising appropriately to a situation in order to avoid any conflict, in order to avoid any kind of clash with other children. The child simply withdraws. That is not a weakness, that's a huge social cooperation skill. That means the child is cooperating others to accommodate that situation. So if we find such kind of behavior in our child, accordingly we have to tick mark and give the right option. If the child always doing such kind of behavior, we put a tick mark or circle here under option 3. If child is doing sometimes such kind of behavioral thing, then we'll just put a tick mark or circle in 2, which is sometimes. And if the child does it rarely, we put a tick mark here in 1. And if the child doesn't do it and doesn't show that nature of compromising nature, then we put a tick mark here in 0. Then if that is done, we'll move further. The 10th skill that we need to evaluate, that shows the child accepts decisions made by adults. We adults, maybe teachers or parents, it's a very regular activity at home or at school. We ask our child to do certain things. So when we tell something and the child accepts without any resistance, then we have to give a circle here, 3. That means whatever is being asked to the child is doing all these things. If the child simply follow and accept the decisions, sometimes, not always, then we put a tick mark or circle mark here in 2. If the child is doing that rarely, we put a tick mark here. And if the child doesn't do it, we put a tick mark here in 0, which is never. Then moving further, the child takes turns in any game or activity. So circle time or game time in schools or at home is very common. So when we experience that a child is patiently waiting, the turn of the game comes, and at that time child takes that, then that shows the social maturity and a good social cooperation skill. Meaning you are allowing others to take their turn and you wait patiently until your turn comes. It may happen in a game like Ludo. If 4 players are playing, the person's turn will come after 3 people finish their throwing the dice. Sometimes it happens the child will be impatient and trying to snatch the dice from others in order to do that. Similar kind of things may happen when in swing there are 2 or 3 children are waiting to be enjoying in that swing. It may happen some children will be patiently waiting and not rush to do them, but some child will be very impatient and trying to push others, try to avoid their turn and try to just be the first person to do all these things. So in that kind of situation, just try to understand how your child or the child for whom you are evaluating that, how the child behaves. If the child always waits and takes turn whenever it comes, then put a tick mark here, circle mark here in 3, which is often. If the child is doing that kind of behavior, sometimes put a tick mark here in 2. If the child is doing that rarely, you put a tick mark here in 1. And if the child doesn't do it and child is always impatient, put a tick mark or circle mark here in 0. And the last one in this social cooperation skill, the 12th skill talks about the child responds appropriately when corrected. Correction or modifying a particular behavior, what we always look for to do in these formative years of child development. And some children, they are very rigid in nature, and some children are very accommodative. They respond it with a smile, with the intent to accept it. Some children, they are very rigid, they don't do it. Some children, they are very, very, very good. You feel that that comfort in that child. Child will be simply takes it and follows whatever the seniors they say. If after correction child is absolutely okay, child is doing that, whatever changes that has to be done and how the things has to be done, if the child follows it quite well and without any resistance, all the time you just put a circle mark here in the 3. If the child is doing that, sometimes put a tick mark here in 2. If the child does it rarely, put it in 1. And when the child doesn't do it, whenever you try to correct the child shows resistance, child becomes very rigid, all the time you put a tick mark or circle here in 0. So now we are completed with the checkpoints. These 12 points can be checked for measuring the effectiveness of social cooperation in our child. Now, once these are the checkpoints, which I have just taken a list in one frame so that you can know that these are the things we have tested in last 10 minutes just to evaluate our child. Now you have done either 0, 1, 2 or 3. 0 stands for never, 1 is rarely, 2 is sometimes and 3 is often the child does it. Now once you have done, you have got these 12 checkpoints and 12 marks for each one of them. Now we have to calculate the scoring system here. Now what you can do, whatever in the piece of paper you have just put tick mark from 1 to 12, then whatever the tick marks you have put in column 1 or all the zeros, you can add and put that 0, because how many zeros you get, if you add together, you will get anyway 0. Then similarly, just go to column 2, whatever rarely that you have tick marked or circled, you add them and put the total mark here, so that you are getting total. So it will be all the, if there are 5 ones, then it will be 5. If it is 2 ones, it will be 2. Like this you add and put the total number here. And similarly, go to the third column, sometimes column, and you simply add how many tick marks or circle you have put and add them and put it here. For example, if you have got 3 marks or circles under sometimes, then it will be 6. If you have got 4, then it will be 8, because each sometimes carries 2 marks. The number of sometimes multiplied by 2 will be the total marks here. Then finally, you add all the scores or all the tick marks or circle marks you put on often. For example, if you have got 5 tick marks under often, then the total score you are going to get will be 50. Because one often carries 3 marks. So if it is 5 3s are 15, so it will be 15. If you have got 6 tick marks under this often, then the score will be 18. So accordingly, you can use your calculator or you can use your own simple mathematics skills just to add them and put the total number. Then you will be getting now 4 sub numbers. One each for each row based on the total number of tick marks or circle marks you have got. Now after you have got this first one anyway will be 0, so that doesn't make any difference. Now what you can do is that now 4 columns you add together. Once you add together, you will be getting your total social cooperation score for your child. Now I hope that all of you must have got the total score. Keep this score in mind. So how to interpret this score is now we have to see. Now once the total score is there, now evaluation outcome can be in 2 categories. One score can be interpreted for playgroup children and nursery children together. That means between 2 years to 4 years, that one score will be considered. And for another score will be interpreted for children who are in LKG and UKG, or 4 to 6 years. 4 to 5 years is LKG and 5 to 6 years is UKG. Now let's see. Now highly social effective as far as the social cooperation skill is concerned, meaning the child will be highly social effective. Anything child will be doing that will create a good impact socially when if your score you have got between 34 to 36 for those children who are between 2 years to 4 years. Either the child is in playgroup or the child is in nursery. This 34 to 36 score shows the child is highly social effective as far as the social cooperation score is concerned. Now similarly, if the score is between 35 to 36 for the children who are in LKG or UKG, or in other words, those who are in the age group of 4 to 6 years, then a score of 35 or 36 is considered to be highly social effective. Now your child is fantastic and having a fantastic skill as far as social cooperation is concerned. Now, average social effective, there is a small scope of improvement. That means the child is social effective, but average, the child is not highly effective. When it will happen, if your score you have got between 24 to 33 for the child who is in the age group between 2 and 4 years of age, or if the child is in playgroup or nursery. And the same who are in LKG and UKG or in the age group of 4 to 6 years, if the score you have got is between 25 to 34, then those children are socially effective, but still there is a room for improvement. Now, moderately social ineffective, meaning the child is not very effective as far as social cooperation skill is concerned. So for all the children who are in playgroup and nursery, if the score is between 16 to 23, that means the child is ineffective socially moderately. And for the children in LKG and UKG, if you have got a score between 20 to 24, then those will be categorized in social ineffective moderately. So meaning there are good amount of scope for improvement. And significantly social ineffective, meaning the child needs huge amount of improvement. The child needs huge amount of attention by the parents and teachers when the score is between 0 to 15 for children in playgroup and nursery, and if it is between 0 to 19 for LKG and UKG children, that means they are socially very ineffective. Social cooperation skills are very poor, and we need huge amount of time and attention to modify those skills to make them highly social effective. So in this thumb rule is that the higher the score, the better is the child's social skill in terms of social cooperation. So we'll try to improve the skills and make our child quite highly social effective as far as social cooperation skill is concerned. Now what we are going to do, how we are going to manage them. Now as we have gone through these 12 checkpoints which defines the social cooperation skill in our child, then just look out how many cases you have tick marked or circled which is never or rarely. That means if it is either never or rarely, pick up those points and just read out those points. What does that mean? That means child is showing little bit of poor performance in those skill sets or those behavioral traits. So we need to work on them, and EduVariate Kids has created quite a lot of avenues, quite a lot of techniques how to improve each one of the points in our previous discussions. And if you look to our syllabus, we have given quite a lot of methods, quite a lot of techniques how to improve those things in the child which pertains to that particular skill or particular checkpoint. If we will be able to work on those points where either it is never or rarely and improve them to sometimes and often, automatically the score of the child improves and child will automatically be very, very effective socially, and social cooperation will be very strong in the child. So when the child grows up, whatever the child does, whether the child does engineering, medical or any art, anything, the child itself will be very, very strong and very, very successful, because social cooperation skill is one of the skill which makes the professionalism in the child very, very strong. So that's where the scientific way of measuring things and working things makes all the difference. That's where we at EduVariate Kids always propose and always advocate that anything we do in the school environment, it must be measured, and if it is measured, then we have the potential, we have the opportunity to work on them and to modify them. So thank you so much for your patient hearing, and I'm sure that you have got now enough opportunity to understand the social skill among your child and how such things, if there is a lack, how we can further improve them. So thank you so much, and we look forward to talk to you in other time by taking another aspects of child development into consideration. Thank you so much.